Hey everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Stallions. I am as always, Brian, and right next to me, just a phone call away, is Jason.
Hello everyone, welcome.
And of course it's October, and October means horror.
Ooh.
Yes, spooky. My house is already done up. I am married to a kindred spirit.
I saw that. Yes, I saw that.
We've got the blow molds going on and all this, the latest things from Michaels. But I thought this was the perfect episode to discuss a favorite of mine, a favorite of yours, and of course a staple, I think, of our childhood, and that is Vincent Price. We have not done we've mentioned Vincent Price many a time, but we've never actually done a sole Vincent Price episode. Is that correct?
It's funny because when you mentioned it, when you threw it out as an idea, my first reaction was, I thought we did.
I'm pretty sure
Price.
we have done him.
Just because he seems to have come up in so many episodes in different ways.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about him.
Well, you know, and that's
it would make
that's
sense.
The first thing I want to say about the man is he's a bit like Roddy McDowall, who we did an episode on, in that he didn't seem to ever slum. He would do television, he would do, radio, he would do music, he would do cartoons. Like, he did not ever, and of course he did major motion pictures, but he did not ever seem to delineate between the two. He would just do wherever the work brought him. And so he was everywhere when we were kids.
Yeah, and it's funny because they were very dear friends as well. I think they did a stage production of something at some point together, which was because and the other thing I'd say about him too, along the same lines, is he could do. I mean, he was versatile. Even though I understand it was Vincent Price, and there's no getting around that it's Vincent Price, he could do satire, comedy horror, regular horror. He goes all the way to very dark horror, like Witchfinder General and things like that. And then, by the time we get to, us growing up, it's the Muppet Show and variety specials and things like that. Like, he just sort of, he was everywhere. He just was a perennial. I mean, we'll get into all that, but I totally agree with you that he and McDowell are sort of, it would make sense they would be kindred spirits.
Yeah.
The type of stuff that they did. And they didn't, I think they thought they were above certain things, but they like to work. They like to constantly work.
And Karloff was like that too. He was never beneath work. So Vincent Price was actually born in 1911. I didn't know that. And the first film I've ever seen him in, the early, he's done earlier films, but I think in horror genre, the first film he ever did was opposite Boris Karloff in Tower of London, 1939, which I had to actually sit on my phone and Google, is Vincent Price in this? Because he's so young. He's 28 years old doing this film, that I didn't know it was him. And then, of course, right after that for Universal, he did The Invisible Man Returns, which I don't think I've actually ever seen. But most people would know him in the Universal series for Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. He played the Invisible Man at the very end in the cameo when they get in the boat.
That's right. He's got a cameo. Yeah. I think mine. I was trying to think about this. I could be wrong about this because we grew up at a time when there would be re-releases of movies. I remember being, 11 or 12 or so, and my dad taking me and my older brother. It might have been maybe I was 10. I don't know. Took us to see Dial M for Murder.
The 3D version. I've seen that. Yeah.
In 3D, and I think it might have been the first 3D thing I'd seen in a theater, which of course prepped me for Metal Storm: The Destruction of Jared Sin.
Were we ever prepped for Metal Storm: Destruction of Jared Sin? Were we ever completely ready for that?
No. And at some point we're gonna have to talk about Space Hunter because I found it on Hulu or Amazon or something. And
let's record a track.
Let's 20 minutes.
A commentary track for that. We should do that.
For Space Hunter? We should. But it's funny how I hadn't seen it in all those years, and it started to look familiar. I started to recognize things in it that were sort of seared into my brain from back then. But so I think it was a situation like that, and he took us to House of Wax on the big screen. So put it this way, I guarantee before then I would have been familiar with his face and his voice, but not entirely sure who he was. Really? Just that he was this. Well, I mean, I don't think at 8 years old I was absolutely I mean, I'd see him in pages of Famous Monsters and things like that, but I don't know how much of the stuff I'd seen because you couldn't rent it and you had to wait for it to show up on TV and stuff. And so House of Wax scared the crap out of me.
It's pretty scary. I saw that at 12 and remember thinking this is disturbing. Now for me, I know I grew up outside of Hamilton, Ontario, where they always played the hilarious House of Frightenstein, which Vincent Price famously taped every segment for 80 episodes in one day. So he was the opening and closing of that show. So he was the face of horror for me. Even when, Saturday morning, that show I think was released in 1970 or 1971, but because of what is called CanCon laws, they released that for years. So I saw Hilarious House of Frightenstein for, my entire childhood. So he became the face of it from that. And of course, I know I'm jumping forward in his career, but stuff like the Brady Bunch, where he appeared as the guy. I think he captures the Brady kids. I can't quite remember. But he was such a versatile guy who didn't turn things down that I remember that.
I probably would have seen him on Batman.
Oh, Egghead. Yeah, I grew up without Batman.
Before I fully understood, his legend. I'm sure I saw him on that. But it's funny because you're jumping ahead, and I was going to wait and save this, but I'll jump in now.
There's no rules on
He did a thing
Stallions,
in 1970. Right, exactly. We've never jumped around before. He did a TV special in '74 called the Horror Hall of Fame.
I remember that.
Which is one of those TV specials that has to be seen because, Frank Gorshin and John Astin shows up and it's canned laughter and horrible jokes and horrible scripting. But I found it a year or two ago, a year ago maybe, and I remember looking, because we didn't talk about this, I don't think, before, because we hadn't talked about Frightenstein in a long time, but there's an Igor character in the show, and it's Billy Van. Is in that special.
Way.
Yeah, it's Billy Van, and it made sense to me because I was like, Brian just was telling me that Vincent Price was in all these, and he must have called him and said, "Hey, I'm doing this special in L.A. Why don't you come and be on it or whatever?" And he's in it as this comedy, wacky Igor type guy. And what's funny about the special is, it's this mix of that early '70s, like everyone's into classic horror and then new stuff and. So they mention The Exorcist and they try to keep it sort of up to, they even have a bit where he's talking to John Astin about monster merchandise and they show the Godzilla model kit and, Famous Monsters magazine and stuff like that. But he says he does two things that I'll never forget in this thing. When he says Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, he says Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and he does it once and then he did it again. And then when Candy Clark was on in the new hit film American, I think he says graffiti or something. He doesn't say.
Can I just interject because I'll never get this out. My wife and I were going to a con once in New Jersey, and we were trying to figure out where it was. And Candy, this woman pulled up next to me and said, "Do you know where the convention is?" And I talked to her and said, "I think it's down this road." And then I'm like, "That was Candy Clark." It was 1997. I gave her directions.
And of American graffiti fame, and the man who feels to
the
earth.
Man Who Feels to Earth.
David Bowie. Yes, David Bowie. So I remember him saying Dr. Jekyll in this thing, but it's a trip because it's so of its time. But your boy Billy Van is in this TV special.
Seek that out.
I think it's 74 or 75. You have to find that. Yeah.
Billy Van, by the way, has a museum in Hamilton now, where Frightenstein was taped. I went to go there. I wanted to really buy a T-shirt, and It was not open when I when I went.
Can you order stuff? I figured you'd be decked out in everything.
Well, I am actually wearing a Frightenstein t-shirt right now. I know you can't see it.
See?
But
I knew it.
no, I did not.
Knew it. So you knew him from. So you grew up
with him. He was on TV every Saturday morning.
That would have been your first. So that would really have been your first exposure.
Oh,
to
absolutely,
who he was,
and it cemented him as the king of horror. Yeah. I didn't know this, but you dig this. He was Simon Templar on the radio in the 40s. Yeah,
that's right.
You did know that.
That's right. And well, I knew that only because I'm the big Saint guy, Saint and Shadow and all that. And George Sanders,
no relation to Colonel,
played the Saint in the movies. And they always were kind of similar to me, Vincent Price and George Sanders, like these silky smooth voices. And George Sanders was the Shere Khan the tiger in Jungle Book, and he was in All About Eve.
The Saint always struck me as a little bit of a gentleman. So that kind of works. Yeah. Now I remember as a kid, my local TV station, I think Global TV, did a thing with the Mad Magician, which is a 1954 3D picture, probably a follow-up to House of Wax, with Price. And I remember that very, very, very vividly. And of course, Magic Shadows, when I was a kid, played The Fly, which I'm sure you remember as a kid as well.
Oh, yes. Well, we talked about this. There was a thing on Friday night late, I think, or Saturday nights. It was called Horror Incorporated.
Wow.
And they would show a horror picture on Friday night, but the camera would go down this hallway of these, creepy, like sculpted heads or life masks or things like that. And then tonight, and so I saw The Fly on there, and I remember The Abominable Dr. Hyde.
Yeah.
Because it was one of those moments where I had seen the face in Famous Monsters, the skull face. And then to see it suddenly one night, and this is, I'm like, 10, 11 years old. Like, this is still pretty scary stuff late at night to watch, because this movie, it's wacky, but it's a little disturbing.
I think it's great.
That face. Oh yeah, no, it's great. Well, he did a lot of that. Theater of Blood, and there was a lot of stuff that he was very tongue in cheek. What I love about, again, back to like when we first sort of knew who he was. I don't know which came first for me, but I even if I had seen him first, I was aware enough, like in TV specials and things, it was apparent enough to me in seeing him in the things that I did that he had something to do with horror movies, because it was always played up in whatever sketch it was, and whatever he did, it was always spooky. And your brain, even as a kid, puts it together and goes, oh, I bet this guy is like there's horror movies and stuff, and then you start to see stuff kind of pop up, and then, the next week he'd be on, Carol Burnett doing something as a vampire or something, and you understood that this guy was synonymous with, with horror, which is kind of fascinating too, because he had, unless I get this wrong, his first, at a very young age too, I think he hit Broadway, and I forget what the production was, but he was like second or third lead in this show, but he was only like 30 or in his early 30s or something. He wasn't really well known in movies at all. And then some of this Broadway thing was huge. It was this major production. And then the movie stuff started to happen, and he was in things like Laura
with Gene Tierney.
Dana Andrews and Gene Tierney and stuff like that. And I think the horror thing, was House of Wax like the first kind of foray into full-on horror, and that kind of opened the doors?
Tower of London was the first thing he did that was horror.
But he wasn't prominent in that.
No,
though,
he was
right?
kind of supporting character. I think House of Wax, you're right. I think that would be the first time he played like the monster in the film. And
right.
I honestly think, and this is just a theory, and others can prove me wrong, but what really happened for him was he was still relatively young, a man in his late 40s, early 50s, when that second generation, like that whole late 50s, early 60s, monster movie mania happened, model kits and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the monster kid.
Lugosi was dead. Chaney died in the early 1970s, and of course, Karloff died in the late 1960s, and Karloff, of course, never stopped working. But he kind of became the face of it. Like, it was like he became the elder statesman, like in the way that Tom Baker is like the elder statesman for Doctor Who now. Vincent Price kind of moved into that, because he had a terrific category of films. I mean, he worked for William Castle, and he got on that AIP kick right in the 1960s. So he kind of just became horror, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think it had to do with he had an approach to it. When you'd see him on talk shows and, even back on game shows in the, early 60s or late 50s or whatever it was, the self-deprecating thing that he had, that was
brilliant.
The scariest man alive, and he's the monster in all these movies, and then he would just, take the piss all the time, and that made him very, very endearing. And then it was, whatever he'd do, people would go and see. And yeah, I think he became the next generation of that. He's the generation under those guys, sort of. But even though he broke at a fairly, I don't know, like you said, was he like mid-30s of House of Wax?
He was probably, I think House of Wax, he was 40 years old.
He was 40 years old. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Which gives me a lot of hope. I mean, I'm 48 now, and...
And when did he do? What he also did that you'll appreciate is the Richard Matheson Last Man on Earth.
He
which became, what was it made into? What was the remake?
No, it was the Omega Man, but it was actually the book was called I Am Legend. The first adaptation was Vincent Price. You're absolutely right.
Right. When he was called Last Man on Earth.
And I've always thought, and this is no offense to him, but he was totally wrong for the part. But the film itself is a much more straightforward adaptation of I Am Legend than the Omega Man. The Omega Man takes it into a new dimension. I've always said to friends and anyone who I will bore with, I wish that there was that film with Charlton Heston in it, because I actually really, if you're going to go with classic actors, I feel Heston is a good Neville because he's a good anti-hero as well as a hero. I love Vincent.
But why do you?
I love Vincent Price, but he's not Neville. He just doesn't have it. I don't know how to explain.
Well, again, do you think that's because we are so familiar with other things that he's done, and so when he shows up in a part like that it's kind of...
It's a really good question.
We feel like
how like certain actors,
because
like I can't take, and I said this to a coworker the other day, I can't believe that Leonardo DiCaprio can kick anyone's ass. I could beat the crap out of Leonardo DiCaprio with one arm behind my back down the road. Doesn't mean I don't like him as an actor, but I just can't, I can't stand up playing a tough guy. Tom Cruise pulls me out of movies. I think that's it. I find that Vincent Price, as much as I do love his films, there's too much empathy to play Robert Neville. I don't know how to explain it other than that.
Here's part of the problem. Part of the problem too is that, we've talked about this before in horror, that you've got these icons that all have very, very, very distinctive voices. Peter Lorre, Vincent Price, Boris Karloff, Lugosi.
Yeah, but it wasn't to the point of parody.
Price, even when
I know what you're saying.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. But it's like when you hear Vincent Price talk, it tends to sound a little sinister. It tends to sound a little, it's a one-off, and I think that it's jarring hearing him do other stuff sometimes. Like even in his early stuff, he just seemed kind of evil, or just kind of.
There's something,
I don't know. I get what you're saying about the adaptation.
There's just something that doesn't, and I haven't watched it in years. Even though it's got to be the most It's got to be the most easily found adaptation of the film ever. It's on every compilation disc. But
what, the Last Man on Earth?
Yeah. And I mean, I remember buying it because I was really into the book in my early college years, and I bought it at the first Fangoria show I went to in like 1990, and being like, this is really good. Like there's some note for note stuff from the book. It's just Vincent Price isn't who I pictured. You read a book and you picture somebody in the book. He's not who I picture as Robert Neville. It just doesn't work. I had no problem with Heston. I had zero problem with Will Smith. But
yeah, I get what you. I mean, I totally, I get it. He's more of a dandy. He's more of a dandy.
He's a man's man. Robert Neville's like a Ron Swanson. Against, if you get that reference, he's a little bit
a Doc Savage.
Yeah, he's like I can build a deck. And
Price is a little. He's kind of a dandy. Yeah, he's always been sort of a dandy. And he's.
I remember there's a part in that film where he has a freak out and he's like, "Oh, I lost my temper," and it's like, no, that's wrong. And that's just just my attachment to that. Like, that is my favorite piece of fiction ever. Other than The Count of Monte Cristo. So like, I really
the man.
love I Am Legend.
He collected. I think he collected art from the time he was a child.
Yeah.
I think he.
Oh yeah,
I think he bought something. I don't know who it was, but I remember he was like a kid or something and saved up.
I think one of the reasons that I'm a painter is because of Vincent Price. He's a Renaissance man. He was a cook.
Total Renaissance.
Actually, I've been holding off on saying this, but my wife and I last Halloween, we took a Vincent Price recipe for Chinese chicken. We got it out of some Seagram's ad or something, and it was horrible.
Well, you remember, no one had taste.
Well, yeah, no, it was just.
I think we only had 3 taste buds.
It was basically chicken and red sauce, and it was like, this is awesome.
But the idea was, if you drank enough, if it was the 70s and you drank enough, you wouldn't notice.
I think that we were missing the Seagram's part of that, but
the secret ingredient
being completely bombed.
Well, he had. I think he did. Didn't he put out a? I thought he and his wife put out a cookbook or something.
They did.
Was that...
Now, he was married a few times, but I think the wife that most of us, 70s kids remember is the Australian actress Coral Brown, who he married. He got intrigued with on the set of the film Theater.
He had an affair with
her, yes. And he was, I think he was a good Catholic, as I recall. And it was a bit of a problem getting married to her. Or she was a good Catholic. I can't remember the two. But
well, it's funny because, and this is neither here nor there, but I find it kind of fascinating. It goes along with the Renaissance thing that we're talking about. I mean, according to his daughter, who is out, she said not long ago that he was bisexual. But also that what was the woman's name, the actress?
Coral Brown.
Yes, and that she was as well. And what I'm getting at is it seemed like he had this lust for life that was about, experiencing everything he could. Like, from the time he was a kid, there was, I don't know if this was like a thing or a biography thing or what, but about how he wanted to travel and get away from the time he was a kid and just, experience everything. And, it kind of all makes sense when you sort of put it together. And I think he just was like the Renaissance man and wanted to sort of, he had these happy marriages apparently that were
devoted,
very,
like he was
very good. And then, he liked to dabble a bit, and like I said, he did that. He played Oscar Wilde on stage, I think in the late 70s or mid 70s or something.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Which was pretty risky at the time. It's just not risky in the sense that he would never work again, but just, there was such, like Dirk Bogarde did a movie in, I want to say 62 or something that was called Victim, where he was a married man who was getting blackmailed by a young man because they had a liaison. And he got, he didn't get blacklisted, but it was, I don't think the movie got released in America.
Could be a career
it was
killer
really,
for some folks. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Now,
totally.
let's go. I wanted to just kind of not obscure some of his '60s stuff because he had an amazing career in the 1960s. We talked about The Last Man on Earth, but he did a ton of stuff for AIP, like Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine. Have you seen those movies?
Oh,
They're freaking horrible.
Yeah, I saw it once, late night thing. Yeah.
And he did a ton of stuff for Roger Corman, The Pit and the Pendulum, Comedy of Terrors, The Raven, The Mask of Red Death, The Tomb of Ligeia. All of these are movies I've seen.
Isn't there one with, is it The Raven?
The Raven's got Peter Lorre and Nicholson. Yeah.
It's one of his first movies.
Yeah. My buddy always loved to do Peter Lorre and Shut Your Mouth.
I think Nicholson got paid in tabs of acid.
Yeah,
Corman just said, "Look, I need you to. Can you work on this script, and then here's a tab. See you Monday." And that's how he. That's how he got started. But yeah, he was. I think it was. You know what it was? It was like. This sounds as corny as can be, but he lent an air of class to anything he was in. He wasn't. Every movie he was in was not. Wonderful, but he was wonderful in everything he did.
No, and he could slum, and like you said, he was on Batman, he was Egghead, he was on Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Mm-hmm.
His appearances, like he was a guest star.
He did Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
He did a great Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, where it's all like ventriloquist dummies. Like, I'm not like I.
That's right. They're puppets.
It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous episode. But I mean, like most Irwin Allen shows, I don't get the reverence. But that's a tremendous episode with the puppets. That is.
You know what it is? I think people are more in love with the concept and the design of a lot of the Irwin Allen stuff.
I've always said, like, there's people who always say to me, "Oh, they should make Mego figures of all the Irwin Allen shows," and it's like, yeah, maybe the ships. Like, the ships are fun, but I can't name a Land of the Giants character, and I've seen every show.
I don't think I've ever seen an episode all the way through. Isn't Time Tunnel another one?
Time Tunnel, yeah, I've seen every
I don't
Time
think I
Tunnel
have.
too.
I remember them vaguely, especially when the one guy showed up on T.J. Hooker.
Yeah.
They're James Darren.
Big concepts, and they're beautiful and they're memorable. But the shows themselves and the characters, there's not much going on. I mean, like, I don't want to get into I don't want to get a whole bunch of angry emails about it.
We'll save that for our Land of the Giants.
Yeah, we hate Land of the Giants episode.
No, but I get it. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, like, I mean, I do. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea is especially like one of the most ridiculous shows on television. I love it. I mean, there's just werewolves and dinosaurs and different monsters attacking this sub and this sub is the size of a warehouse. Like, it just keeps going and going.
And who's the David Hedison, right?
David Hedison,
the other dude in it, the young
what's the one that they always made fun of on Mystery Science Theater? Oh God,
the redheaded guy,
the older guy. Richard Basehart.
Oh,
Richard
that guy.
Basehart. Yeah,
Richard Basehart. But there was an older guy, older than Basehart, wasn't there?
Could be.
Wasn't there another guy? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
But I mean, like, he really was peppered in 1960s TV. And then, of course, in the 1970s, he had a renaissance. Again, I think monster films had a renaissance when we were in diapers with films like Dr. Phibes and Dr. Phibes Rises Again, which are two of my favorite Vincent Price films. And
I love the design of that.
I love like
greatest.
Both those films are amazing to me. They're just great. And Theater of Blood is fantastic to me.
Well, you know who's in that? You know who the female lead
Diana
is?
Rigg.
My girlfriend, Diana Rigg.
Is she still your girlfriend?
Well, she's kind of, she's doing her thing. I'll let her do her thing.
All right.
Yeah. She calls when she's in town.
Good.
That's all.
Good. You have an open thing going on.
Leave it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know she's busy. It's all right. I got stuff going on too. Yeah. I'm doing stuff,
I'm still dating Betty Page,
but
so,
right. But that's an odd movie, Theater of Blood. That is, I mean, he's off the walls. In that
what's funny? I love that movie so much because my old man loves that movie. Like my
really?
dad's he's not a horror fan. He just would stay up late and watch movies. And, we'd be sitting having dinner, and he's not a big genre guy, but he'd be sitting having dinner, and he'd be like, you ever seen the one where Vincent Price feeds that guy his dogs? And he'd be like, that was the only connection I had with my dad in that regard. Like, he would just stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning and watch Westerns and shit. And, he would just occasionally come up with something and I'd recognize it, like he knew what Kolchak was, or
right.
He was just kind of like a filter. He would watch whatever was on TV. Right. So never a fan of anything, but that's how we kind of connected. Was he would
and you were his internet.
Yeah, it was his internet. And I go, that's Theater of Blood, and he go, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one. It's a weird movie. I mean, it's pretty grisly. I don't think it was a Hammer film.
No, it's most definitely not a Hammer film. No, I don't even know.
Yeah, it's not a Hammer film.
I don't even know if it's in.
But Robert Morley's in it, and Ian Hendry is in it, who was in Get Carter.
Oh, yeah, you know what? Ian Hendry has shown up so much in my life recently. I'm beginning to think there's some weird coincidences going on. Because Ian Hendry wasn't he the first star of the Avengers?
Yes, he was. He was in a show called I want to say it was called Doctor at Large or something. And Patrick McNee shows up in an episode as John Seed. He helps him with this case or whatever, and then it became the Avengers. And the first season is the two of them. And when they went to bring it back, I don't know if it was that Henry was busy waiting for more money, or he was busy doing a movie or something, and he didn't get on it the next season. And of course, that was then Honor Blackman, and the rest is history. But he really was like he was like groomed as this kind of matinee idol sort of guy, in the early '60s, and he never quite worked a lot, but he never quite got. He was a raving alcoholic. Okay. I mean, really bad. Like there's a clip you can find on YouTube of "This Is Your Life" with Patrick McNee, and I think it's maybe I don't know, mid '80s or something. And Henry just looks awful. He comes up, but he was gonna be the in other words, Patrick McNee got as big as what Henry was supposed to achieve, and he never sort of got that momentum again. And so when he showed up in Get Carter, a lot of people were like, "Oh, wow, okay, you're you're way down the second bill of this movie."
Well, that's the thing is when I watched Get Carter recently, I had this series of coincidences with the character where I he was bothering me. He was like that actor seemed too big for that role, and I was sitting there on my phone. And then a day later, I had the latest issue of Infinity Magazine. You can buy Infinity Magazine at Barnes & Noble right now.
Yes, the magazine, the unofficial magazine of Pod Stallions.
And the first page I opened up was a picture of Ian Hendry and Patrick McNee. And I realized, oh my God, like how many times I'm going to see Ian Hendry? And now you've mentioned him. It's
and he was in Theater of Blood.
Theater of Blood, I think he was the film that I recommend everyone see. I think that is Price's, joie de vivre. I mean, I think that film is about it's about a hammy actor who gets basically he gets kind of like the critics beat him out of his career, and he fakes his death. I think he fakes his death, and
spoilers.
Yeah, and he ends up serving up their murders.
Well, in it, he I don't know if it's based on Shakespeare, the deaths, or based on certain plays. I forget, but it has something to do with either plays or Shakespeare or something. But he did that a couple of times. He did it a couple of times where he was in. There was a Hammer film, I think. Maybe it wasn't
Amicus.
Hammer, but he was in it with Amicus, with Peter Cushing, and Price in the film plays this big time horror movie star. You know, so he did that kind of thing a couple of times where he sort of was spoofing his image or his being an actor within the film or something. And
I don't think Price ever worked for Hammer.
Okay, so it must have been, maybe it was Amicus then.
He loved England and Paris. And
who did that? Was Amicus Witchfinder General?
No, that was AIP.
That was AIP. Yeah. It's one of those. But and everything I've ever heard about Witchfinder General, which I believe was called The Conqueror Worm when it first hit. I don't know where that was the title in America, and Witchfinder General was the title in the UK, or vice versa. But everything I've heard about that was that he was very nervous about that movie because it took things so far. I mean, I think it was an X certificate when it came out, and it's pretty brutal in its violence.
Very sadistic. I remember even the poster was a little creepy. Like it was his face, but it was all like scenes of torture in the face, if I recall. I could be wrong.
Yeah, like the opening scene is hard to watch even, and I don't mean hard to watch in a Exorcist kind of way. Just little makes you a little squeamish. But he. But I always understood that he didn't really like that. He didn't.
Well, he
was very nervous about how far it took the violence and the horror.
That's the same with Cushing, though, and he's another guy we should probably do a show about. There's a rape scene in one of the Frankenstein films. I think it's Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, and I really hate it. I personally really, hate that that's in the film, and it really helped me once realizing that somebody, I think the actress who's being raped in the film, said that Cushing was just beside himself. He didn't want to do it, and he was apologetic about it. And it was like, he was right. It went against even though I think the Hammer Frankenstein is a total bastard. It really didn't go to the character,
right? Yeah, and I think it was. I think for Price, it was easy to Theater of Blood is pretty violent. I mean, it's grotesque, but it's done, in a comedic way.
Yes, absolutely.
It's done as sort of a satire. So then you can sort of get away with it. But I think he was always nervous about.
Well, I think he associated his image with the film image. I think he associated. He knew that people would sit there and think, "Well, this is Vincent Price."
Right.
Yeah.
Right, I think you're right. But he was larger than life. I mean, and everybody, again, like a Karloff thing. I think no one ever had a bad word to say about him.
No, I think he was one of those guys who nobody.
It's funny. Now that I think about this is just coming to me. When I first moved to LA, I worked on a low budget science fiction movie in San Bernardino. I had a place in Burbank, Toluca Lake. And things were getting really grim already in the first couple of months because I thought I'd get work right away. And someone called me to do a job moving this video vault from Santa Monica Boulevard to Warner Hollywood. It's a long story. That then led to the company calling me a couple months later saying, "Hey, we need a PA. We need someone to drive around." This wasn't. Instead of a messenger service, I was driving all around LA in a beat up car, delivering packages and stuff from this company. And while they were in the office they were in on Santa Monica Boulevard, just down the hallway was another company who, it was a Tim Burton project. He was working on a major documentary about Vincent Price. And I sat in with the editor a couple of times, and they just had stacks and stacks of footage, and so this was about 95. So Price died in like 93 or something.
He died.
And it would make sense that Tim Burton was doing this because they had a relationship, and his student film and the short film, and then Edward Scissorhands and all that stuff. And I remember years later thinking about it again and thinking, oh well, that's probably going to hit any day now. They're gonna finally put that thing out. And as far as I know, it never got released. But it was a Tim Burton executive produced thing, and he was doing this major documentary on Vincent Price, which I don't think has ever seen the light of day. But I thought it was so cool, looking at some of this footage and some of the edits and stuff. And it's a long time ago, so I don't remember it a lot. But I thought, wow, this is neat. I'm seeing something before it sort of, gets out there to the public. But it never did. So maybe I'm lying. Maybe I made it up.
I have no idea. I would like to think I watched it if it did come out.
Yeah, I don't think it did. I don't think it ever did.
Now, we should talk about his contributions to music, too, because I think, and this is huge for me, I'm a huge Alice Cooper fan, but he, of course, recorded for Alice Cooper's Welcome to My Nightmare.
Yes.
And more.
Tell us about that.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. What? I don't know. I mean, what year?
1975, which was
75.
Alice Cooper's first solo album, and that was my
and
first.
How high did it chart? No, I'm kidding.
I have no friggin' idea. It was. It was the. It was the first time I'd been exposed to Alice Cooper, and to be honest with you, I think I got exposed to Alice Cooper from the Muppet Show. I mean, it was or Marvel Comics. I was a very young boy, and I have a lifelong affection for Alice Cooper. But of course, I think most kids of the '80s would remember Vincent Price from Thriller.
Oh shit! Yeah,
yeah. That might have sold.
I mean, I
one or two copies.
I don't even think. I'm going to make a confession here. Which I'm not sure anyone listening to the show is aware of. Outside of some Jackson 5 stuff and Off the Wall, was never a Michael Jackson fan.
Me either. Yeah.
I didn't, a video didn't come on and I was, hateful. It wasn't like that. I was listening to the Police, Synchronicity over and over again. I didn't care about Thriller. And again, also because these songs just played nonstop. But then I was that kid. I know that there are a lot of people I've talked to that this is an experience. Friday night videos.
Yeah.
I think the Thriller video had premiered on MTV, but we didn't have MTV at that time. So I was, 13, 14. It was late night, Friday night videos. This thing premiered, and it blew my head off, that video.
Thriller?
And because because it was horror, and it was cool, and it was well done, and it was the guy that directed American Werewolf in London. I knew who he was at that point. But I didn't, because I didn't have the album, I didn't really know that Vincent Price was involved. So when that bit comes in, I was just, holy cow, this is amazing. It really not. I still never bought the album. I've never owned it. Yep. I didn't run out to get it. But that redeemed Michael Jackson. That redeemed Michael Jackson a little bit, because the album came out in '82 or '83, but Thriller hit, I think, in '80. Okay, because Thriller hit in '84. That video, it had been out that long, but it already had like three singles and videos and stuff. And it was just this cool, because everybody was talking about it the next Monday at school. Like, did you see the thing? Because it was a werewolf.
One kid actually confessed that Thriller gave him nightmares, and that child did not have a very good Monday.
The song or the video?
The video. If the song did, he shouldn't have shown up for school.
Because there's that one shot. There's that one shot when they push in on Mike, when Michael turns around as a zombie, where he does that thing with his eyes, and it is scary. It is so I think that's all Rick Baker, right? Didn't he do that whole video?
He did do that.
Landis. Yeah. I think he looks. I
never was scared of Thriller.
Well, I'm not saying I was
always
scared.
thought I could push Michael down.
You can see. Oh yeah. Okay, I see where this show is going. I see where we're going with this. No, I'm saying that it had its moments, that video, and you could see how it might freak certain kids out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was never a Michael Jackson guy.
Don't get me wrong. I just,
So I would get excited when it would come on the radio because I knew I was going to hear Vincent Price, which was just perfect. I don't know how many takes that was, but it was just absolutely perfect.
I don't think it was many takes for him. I think he was kind of Krusty the Clown.
Well, what we got to talk about, as long as we're talking about his extracurricular activities, his appearance in ads, and especially the Shrunken Head kit,
we should
Hangman,
talk about
the commercials for Hangman.
Yeah,
he did Hangman too, right?
I played Hangman like 1,000,000 times and didn't know that was him on the box. Yeah, did
he do Battleship too, or just Hangman? Or was it? Am I getting the two mixed up? I know he did Hangman, but did he do a Battleship?
I know he's on the box for Hangman. I don't know about Battleship, but let me find out, because that's going to bug me now.
And then the Shrunken Heads kit, which I always
the Shrunken Heads kit. Yes, that one was synonymous with Vincent Price.
Price, in fact, remember that Simpsons where they riffed on it? I nearly fell off the couch.
Or was it grandson Jody?
Isn't it like an egg painting kit or an egg coloring kit?
Vincent Price Magic. I don't think he's on the box for Battleship. He was on the box for
but I think he was in a commercial for Battleship. I think he was in a series of commercials, or maybe it was for Hangman. But I know he was in a toy commercial.
I think like you got Don Adams and Dick Van Dyke and Lucille Ball.
Yeah. Wait, what did Dick Van Dyke do? What was
he
the
was
thing
Gabriel Toys' spokesperson in the 1970s.
Oh yeah.
So he did Shoots Away and that stuff.
And Othello, wasn't Othello a Gabriel game? Didn't he do a commercial for Othello or something? Why do I know that?
He did one for the Lone Ranger toys, apparently. I've never seen it. I have seen Mason. I do have the original film reel for Mason Reese for the Matchbox Fighting Furies.
Of course you do. Did you get it from Mason? Because you guys hang out, don't you?
Yeah, I do. We hang out every Thursday. We go bowling. But
with Rodney Rippey or whatever.
Rodney Allen Rippey.
Rodney Allen Rippey.
He's stuck up.
You guys have a bowling league?
But Vincent Price. Yeah, he did. The egg magic thing on The Simpsons makes me laugh because it is that Shrunken Heads thing.
But with eggs, it's a perfect joke. And then he shows up at the end on the bus, like,
"Hello, Jody, you're not helping." Yeah, this is one of my favorite Simpsons episodes.
I nearly died when I saw that.
Time. And there really is by the way, there really is a grandson named Jody Price. That guy exists. And I don't know if they interviewed him in Vice or whatever, but he's like, yeah, that didn't help the Simpsons episode.
That's funny.
Like he really is Vincent Price's grandson.
He did he did magazine ads. He did.
Oh yeah.
Did he do something for pickles or something once, like a pickle commercial? Or
my wife and I were watching. This is what inspired this episode, by the way, is that my wife had never seen the Paul Lynde Halloween special, which Vincent Price isn't in, by the way. But she's a huge...
No, but it feels like he should be.
Yeah, and she's a huge fan of Halloween. So we started putting on vintage Halloween. We had a very unsuccessful run to 3 or 4 antique malls looking for Halloween blow molds and Halloween decorations. And, she's already in the spirit. So
nice.
We put on a ton of commercials, and Vincent Price was in like half of them. And she at one point in the evening said, "Was there anything he said no to?" And I just thought that was really funny. And of course he didn't.
Well, what's funny though is that, and again, I only have a I understand what I'm doing with the with the Chrysler commercials and stuff. I can gauge it on a certain level, okay? But like something like that in the mid '70s, when you sign up for that had to be ridiculous money for the time.
Yeah.
Don't you think like it was to me, none of those are like, it feels like he kind of did it for the I'll just go and do this. But it must have been pretty damn lucrative, right? To get a campaign like that, like was there ever a Mego thing that was a celebrity sort of a person in the commercial, or that did anything for?
Well, sure.
Mego?
They would hire, but we didn't all grow up during the Depression, and
speak for yourself.
Well, sorry, I didn't know you were an eternal Mr. Reeves.
Thanks for rubbing it in.
I think that had a lot to do with it, where they just kept taking the work, regardless of where it came from in some regards. Like that's my only thing is.
But it had to be good. Had to be good money,
to be good
right?
bread. Yeah, absolutely.
Jumping on stuff like that. Yeah, that's all. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's cool.
I didn't mean to interrupt. So she said, was there anything he did?
Well, yeah, she said like he just seemed to. I can't remember what the commercial was, but it was silly, and it was probably late '70s, and it was like, he didn't seem to turn down work, which I don't think is a bad thing. And of course, him and his wife Coral Brown did a. Do you remember this sci-fi show called Time Express? I do not, and that's weird for me to say because I usually know every show that got shut down within 13 episodes. But this one is not helping. I don't remember Time Express at all.
Time Express? Yeah. No, that doesn't ring a bell at all.
Time Express.
What was that? What was it
Time
about?
Express
were they working at a newspaper? Were they working at a newspaper called Time Express?
It was an American fantasy drama series that was broadcast on CBC. This is probably CBS from April 26th to May 17th. Okay, it was actually the same producers as. Same producers as Logan's Run, which is Ivan Goff and Ben Roberts, who also produced The Love Boat, and Vincent Price is in a hilarious episode of The Love Boat. He plays a hypnotist and is the best.
Did he do that?
Damn straight! Yeah, it's one of my favorite Love Boats. Okay, so.
See, I can't believe you've never looked this show up, or you couldn't find a bootleg of this show at this point in your life, considering the pedigree of who's producing it. I would think you would be the first guy in line to get a copy of Time Express.
I'm filled with shame right now.
Kind of disappointed. I'm not going to lie.
But it really is a fart in the wind. 4 episodes aired. 4.
And you've never seen it.
But I will. I promise to everyone listening, all 12 of you, I will seek this out and give you my opinion.
How do you expect to be the bastion,
I don't know how
the fountain of all knowledge, and the high grand poobah of any of this if you don't know what the hell Time Express is? I'm a little disappointed.
Have I not made custom action figures of the entire cast by now?
That just seems. You made custom action figures for friggin' a man called Clone and Buddy Claw, or whatever it's called. What's his buddy called? Claw?
Torque.
Clawface? Torque. Sorry. I get it mixed up with some other guy with a claw. You made customs of them, and you haven't seen Time Express. Oh well.
All 4 hours of Time Express.
All 4. And they only aired a half of the 4th episode.
I'll have to track down the guy. I'm sure his name is Bilbo, or his email address is Bilbo, who has the original airings of these on tape. And
one of those guys at one of those shows, the guys that have all the DVDs, all the table full of DVDs that are all bootlegs that you'd think if a studio walked in at any moment they would get a cease and desist. Somebody has to have a copy of the show. What's it about? What's the
What's the premise? Series is an anthology similar to other dramatic. Oh, so it is a spin-off of Love Boat and Fantasy Island. Even more.
Oh, wait a minute.
To make me fall on my sword. Vincent Price and Carl Brown are host of the Time Express, a train that takes its passengers back in time to relive a crucial point in their lives. Like, for you and I, it would be like when we're sending away to Starlog for some shit.
And then the kicker of the log line
about that one for a minute.
Will they screw it up again or do it right this time?
Will they lick that envelope?
Will they make better life choices
or will they buy
not?
An issue of Penthouse?
Tune in. What year was that show?
79, baby.
I'm not going to lie, because I have a bit of a photographic memory for this crap. That kind of sounds familiar to me. I don't. Maybe I'm just mixing it up with
let me
shitty anthology show that lasted 4 weeks.
You with the guest stars, Jerry Stiller.
Oh, please hit me.
Richard Mauser.
Okay, you got me. Okay, I'm making room on the DVD player right now.
Marsha Strassman. Mrs. Cotter.
Oh, so they went for the
no
top.
one else
yeah.
that I know. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
They went crazy.
That is like that Vincent Price Halloween thing, that Horror Hall of Fame, whatever. I mean, they roll out John Carradine, who's his hands were so bad at that point. His hands were so bad at that point. With the arthritis, he had that severe arthritis. But it was like John Carradine, John Astin, Gorshin comes out and does some impressions, and his timing is completely off. He invented like nobody rehearsed this, and it's just and lame jokes.
I just watched the Paul Halloween special. I know lame jokes.
I mean, isn't there a bit in the Paul Lynde thing where either him or Tim Conway dress up in like biker leather, but it looks. And they've got, isn't he wearing like a pink scarf or something? Or Tim Conway's doing like red, white, and blue or
they're truckers
something
for Pinky Tuscadero. And in between
Tuscadero, that's right.
Every clip that we could find, because the whole thing's not on YouTube anymore, because I guess it got released on DVD, and the $7 that's going to make, they had to yank it from YouTube. So we kept having to watch the ABC promos in between the little clips we could find. And, of course, they're Ernie Anderson, the Love Boat guy.
Died on the ABC Sunday Night Movie.
The Paul Lynde special with... And like, the first
Roger
one,
Moore
he mentions the actress name, but he calls her, so-and-so / Pinky Tuscadero. And then, like, we watched another clip, and then it's like, with Tim Conway and Pinky Tuscadero. Like, now she's just the character in the...
Right, exactly, because that was the recognition you'd have. Somebody would watch that, not because they knew who she was, because they knew the character. If that was in the TV guide,
it's actually kind of horrible.
Oh, my God. It is. It makes me feel like a piece of meat.
Maybe she was okay with it because the special itself is just so bad.
I just would like to point out at this point, I'm going to make a little detour regarding the Paul Lynde Halloween special. And please don't take this the wrong way, because I admire Kiss. I've always admired them. But as a kid, I get in an argument with my cousin, who was better, Kiss or Paul McCartney and Wings. And I think you know where I lean, basically. But I just want to say, for the record, and I know we make really cool Kiss action figures and everything, so I love Kiss. I love them. I bet them they're nice. That was their TV debut, wasn't it? Wasn't it their television
debut? They were in the Midnight
debut?
Special before, but that was their main, like, their prime time. Yeah, that was huge. That was 30 million people.
You know what the Beatles debut was?
4 or 5.
Ed Sullivan Show. Do you know how many viewers? 75.
Yeah, but according to my grandfather, they were crap because it was
record. And they got long hair. What with the hair? Get a haircut. So just saying, there were people in the 70s that were going, Kiss are the new Beatles. They're better than the Beatles. No way. And I always said, no, they're not. Wings could take them in a fight.
I would really like to watch Wings and Kiss fight. I would like to watch that now, because I just watched Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park with my kids, and it's like the worst fight sequences ever recorded for film. So
I can't. First of all, didn't they have to? Wasn't Peter Criss so off his head on model glue or whatever it was that they had to get somebody else? Didn't they get someone else in for a lot of the shots where he's not like the wide shot?
By Zan from the Super Friends, and Ace Frehley is a black guy for almost most of the film, and it's really obvious. And
weren't they just like they could not deliver? They could not deliver a line to save their lives.
The thing that I remember reading, because I had a minor Kiss period. Peter Criss couldn't act, so they dubbed him over. Ace Frehley, when the writers came, was a bit of a dick to them, so they thought he was like the Harpo of the band. So they wrote him all his lines are him going, ack, ack. And
they all had distinctive personalities. They had to find something for them to do.
By the way, I just want to say to everyone, Vincent Price has nothing to do with Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, but he did work for Hanna-Barbera on the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo as Vincent Van Ghoul.
Yes. And that design, the artwork of him in that is
I had
awesome.
dropped the hell out of
it's
Scooby-Doo
one of the
at
best
this point because of Scrappy Frickin' Doo. I do not like that, and when Velma
I agree.
And Freddie
I couldn't agree with you more. I think we're all in agreement.
I was done, and I was also 14 years old, so it didn't really matter. But
I was also 27, and I had moved on from Scooby-Doo.
This really wasn't a source of outrage.
But yeah, I think everyone is in agreement. I don't find any people through life that stick up for Scrappy Doo. I think it's sort of a.
I have met
people hated it.
I got it through Plaid Stallions. I got this you sons of bitches, and it was like, you're the guy, and I just I tried to.
Oh, you're the guy.
In a jar, but it didn't work.
He's the guy that watched the Fonzie cartoon.
Oh yeah,
just for Mr. Cool.
Oh yeah, Mr.
The dog. Yeah, the other
Mr. Cool and Godzilla
cartoon dog in history
mashed into one with Batmite and whatever the Orko, and it's still not as bad as Scrappy Doo.
Oh, you know what? Have you seen? You've seen the? I don't know if you have, but the second season of Filmation Flash Gordon,
they got
the first season was one of the greatest cartoons. They thought we got to boost the ratings. No more serializing of it like this week is Madness on Mongo. No, you can't do it. We got to make them individual stories. And let's bring in a little sidekick like Scrappy Doo. And in came that pink dragon, and that's pretty dire, especially when you think about the tone of the show in the first season and how drastically different it is in the second season.
When I look at Filmation
little pink
shows,
dragon, so
my favorite show is Tarzan, and then everything else. Nothing has that Filmation imp in it. Jason of Star Command doesn't have that. The Freedom Force don't have that. I like all that.
Star Trek. Star Trek
You're
animated
absolutely
didn't have it, right? So they didn't have any goofy sidekicks.
And I'll bet you anything, Scheimer tried to put that in, and whoever said, no, don't do that. Because they liked that.
Hey, speaking of, I know we're really digressing here, but I can't. Is the Godzilla? First off, is the Godzilla cartoon available on DVD? Is that series available anywhere, like a licensed, decent copy of it? And secondly, were there ever any specific toys made for that show? Well, I think there was a comic book, but were there any
comic book wasn't
specific toys made for it?
On the only toys I know of are two things. Imperial did a bunch of puffy stickers, and the reason I know that is when I went to buy my first pack of cigarettes, there was a set of Imperial Godzilla puffy stickers with Godzuki, and I was like,
wow, they warmed the shelves for a while.
Cigarettes, thank you. And
and a bottle of
variety
gin.
stores don't do that in Canada. And they did. I think Knickerbocker did a plush series of Godzilla and Godzuki, and I actually have the Godzilla from my childhood, and my beautiful daughter sewed up
That's
my
all they
Godzilla. That's it. Yeah.
Aw.
We are like we are.
I thought they might have done the thing like
away from Vincent Price at this point.
I know. I'm sorry. I apologize. Let's just pretend that the Godzilla series was Vincent Price's idea. You know it would be fun.
Well, let's just spread misinformation. That's what the internet does now. Yeah. Now,
yeah, why not?
Price of
so he was the 13 Ghosts of blah blah. Scooby-Doo. Yeah. Oh, that's another one. I'm sorry. There's another one. House on Haunted Hill.
It absolutely
Wasn't that Vincent Price?
Yeah.
That is a great horror movie. Most of Price's stuff is really good. I mean, even the stuff that's low budget and campy or whatever, he's always wonderful.
Too. And I don't know if you ever listened to Gilbert Gottfried's podcast, but Gilbert Gottfried especially loves to do the whole, like, the tingler is loose in the theater, that whole shtickle.
Yeah. Didn't he put shocks in the seats, like you're supposed to get an electric jolt or something in the seats, and there were, like, skeletons that came down from the ceiling.
House on Haunted Hill, yeah.
Yeah, so the tingler.
And wouldn't you have loved to have done that? Like, for me, I would pay $50 to go to that and do that.
Yeah.
Like,
somebody, actually, that's a really good idea. Somebody could make a bundle if every year they did, like, let's say in LA or whatever, they got a theater and ran, a week's worth of the William Castle stuff as you would have experienced it back in the day. That would be such fun. That
I
would
never
be such
got
a great
more
idea.
upset at my parents than when our local station ran a John Waters film in Smellorama. So,
you got a little scratch
and it was so weird because, like, we're buttoned down Toronto, and like they were selling these at, like, Max Milk, and my parents wanted to go away for that weekend, and I was like, how the hell? Damn it, like, it's 1983, or, I didn't have a VCR, and I can just remember thinking, like,
right,
this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I'm never going to get to do this again. Of course, I never did. But, and why the hell is all of Toronto interested in doing a John Waters thing? Like, that was the more weird thing. I'm 12 going, like...
Well, they only printed out 10 cards per store, probably.
Yeah, but they were selling them at variety stores. It was just such a... it was just such a thing. I did see The Mad Magician. Like, the Global was doing this all summer, and I did see The Mad Magician in 3D, which was a Vincent Price film, getting right back into that. Was great, but I was always pissed about that John Waters film. I can't even remember the name of the one they were doing. That reminds me too of a local station once. It had to be around '83 when the 3D thing was really kicking off again. Oh yeah, like Coming At Ya and Space Hunter.
They ran promos. I mean, round the clock. You could not escape these promos. Tune in on May 12th. We will show Gorilla at Large.
I saw Gorilla at Large.
Okay, and they ran these trailers on TV, and it's like, go and be sure you go to your local Super America store, and you'll get a pair of 3D. I mean, I ran out so fast to get the glasses, and none of the stores had them when I kept looking, and I started to feel weird when I'd ask, and they didn't know what I was talking about, and then finally they'd show up, and I got a couple of pairs just in case one of them broke, because I was ready to watch Gorilla at Large on TV in 3D, and it didn't work, of course. Nothing was, it was the biggest ripoff. Everybody was talking about this movie. Like, all my friends were, are you going to watch oh yeah, they're going to show it in 3D. You got to get the, like, it was kind of a thing that everyone was kind of buzzing about. And it was a giant ripoff. It didn't do a thing. You couldn't, when you took them off, it was just fuzzy.
What I remember the best about it was it didn't work too badly from my end. But a lot of the movies, I think, like they showed Gorilla at Large, they showed Revenge of the Creature, they showed The Mad Magician. I remember doing that all. I doted on that. I loved it. But some of the movies really sucked. Like, there was a movie called Inferno or something like that, and it was just a boring movie that really didn't have a lot to do with, like, the 3D was thrown in at the end or something like that. You started to realize that the whole 3D thing was maybe a fad for a reason. Like the movies sucked.
And that was, I think that's right about the time that Dr. Tong would do 3D House of Pancakes or House of Beef or whatever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It was a complete riff on the 3D craze and how stupid it was and how you just pushed stuff toward the camera, and that was all they kind of did.
Well, I can remember the CNE had a new polarized, this is back in the early 80s, they had a new polarized 3D exhibit, and it was the biggest thing that was going to be there that summer. And it was, it wasn't the red and blue, it was the polarized glasses. And we all got sent in a room, and it was a dark room, and they put a screen on, and it was just a guy smashing crap and throwing the pole. Like, it was completely Dr. Tong. I remember that so well. Like, oh my God, it's just
Dr. Tong.
And then they just shush you out the room, right? Like, they did
that. That Midnight Cowboy one was one of the greatest things ever on television. But that wasn't 3D, was it? That wasn't a 3D thing. They just did a remake of Midnight Cowboy.
They just remade Midnight Cowboy.
John Candy in the cowboy boots.
Marianne Mobley walking through here, do I?
John Candy in the cowboy boots, and then Eugene Levy walking down the street.
And it's
and then he does I'm walking here. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen on television in my life.
I think they're trying to use like downtown Edmonton as New York City, which I lived in Edmonton in the 90s, and it's like there's no friggin' way this is Manhattan.
It's so brilliant. Yeah. So why don't we? Well, here's this. Now that because we're all the stuff that we love and talk about and stuff, we did talk about the board game. The Hangman game that he was on the packaging of. Correct me if I'm wrong. There is a 12-inch figure of Dr. Phibes, I believe, that was made by somebody. I forget who. And I think there's a Price head, and then there's the skull head.
Yeah, and I think there's actually a Vincent Price action figure out there, too.
There's a figure that Mezco did. I think it's Mezco, but it's all exaggerated, kind of like claymation sort of thing.
Well, it could be. I know.
Kind of exaggerated, but I can't. Is there one that exists that's just Vincent Price as he is? Was there like a one for the Raven or something that I missed, or
I want to think Amok Time Toys made a Vincent Price figure.
They did. Yeah. For the Raven, I think, with the blue coat and the fur collar.
Yeah. I honestly think they did. First of all, Figures Toy Company, the Mego guys, they made a beautiful Egghead doll based on, Vincent Price's Egghead.
Oh, right, for Batman.
And NECA made a 12-inch based on, I don't remember NECA doing this, but they made a 12-inch based on the Raven. Wow.
Okay, so that's it, the Raven. Yeah, NECA, it is the Raven.
Wow, that was a million years ago.
Wait. Sorry, NECA did. You mean a 12-inch figure?
Yeah, 1/6.
Is that the one I'm thinking of? He's in the blue coat with the white fur collar. Yeah, okay, so that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
so that was NECA.
That's got to be a million years ago because NECA hasn't done stuff like that in a while.
And then Amok Time did the Phibes one. Is that Amok Time?
Yeah. Who did the Phibes? And then, of course, my buddy Martin did a couple of bootleggy figures for Distinctive Dummies. He does these little tiny runs, and he and I collaborated on a Vincent Price from Frightenstein that I did for the local Hamilton toy show, where we did half a dozen Frightenstein Vincent Price figures. Which I'm very fond of, and of course, Majestic Studios, by the way, did the Vince Price Dr. Phibes. But Martin's
that I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind picking that up. That would be a cool. one.
I'm such a Mego scale guy. Martin, of course, did the Frightenstein for me, and it was more or less just done for me and my friends. But
did he do a Theater of Blood set with him and Diana Rigg, like 8-inch set?
He's done a bunch of stuff.
Because that's the funniest thing about the movie is the disguises that they wear. And there's at one point that Price has
Butch.
a giant afro.
Yeah. Hi,
and
I'm
he's in
Butch.
sort of 70s gear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Martin has produced a 12-inch and an 8-inch Butch. I know that.
He has?
Yeah. They came and went. Like, he does these tiny little runs.
Oh, man. Can you reach out to him and see if they're done? Oh, man. I'd love to get that.
And they're amazing. Like, Butch.
And she's got like a big mustache and big sunglasses and a wig. It's clearly
the one role that Vincent Price just nailed was Butch.
Oh my God! I'm so disappointed that exists and I don't have it.
Oh, it's so awesome too. I don't own it either. I remember that's how I got to know him, was when I saw that Butch doll, and I was like, I gotta talk to this guy.
He made Butch. I wonder if I can find it on eBay or something.
You know what? You probably could. I'll keep an eye out, because there probably isn't he didn't make a lot of them, and there's probably only 50 guys who would ever want that figure. But,
well, that's the one I'm thinking of, right? Where he's got a big fro.
Yeah, he does I think he kills.
He's like a hairdresser
who he ended up marrying.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think you're right. Oh my God, I got to find this.
Oh yeah.
And then of course he did, like we said, the Muppet Show. I used to see him he'd be on Carson all the time.
Yeah, and he did the Monster Club, which we've talked about in the Amicus film, where he teams up with John Carradine.
John Carradine. And then is Cushing in that too, in the Monster Club?
No, I don't think Cushing is in the Monster Club.
Is that the one?
Whitman is.
Is that the one that I always get mixed up? But it's I think it has UB40 in it or something.
It does have UB40 in it.
It's like one of the first things they ever did.
Film. Yeah, it's not a really great film. It has Carradine in it. It has Stuart Whitman in it. I do not believe. I think that's the one that Cushing and Lee both passed on. They went, this.
Okay, I'm looking at eBay right now. There is a Tingler.
Yep.
There is a Tingler, and there is a Pit and the Pendulum one. But I don't see Butch.
I think they went to town. I know Butch was made at least as a 12-inch.
That's brilliant.
Butch was, yeah.
That's so brilliant. Wow. But you know what else he did, and I think he did a lot, was Hollywood Squares. I think he was on Hollywood.
Really?
Yeah, I think he did like a ton of episodes of Hollywood Squares, which was a hugely popular show. I don't know if it's still on. Like the revamp thing is still on, but yeah, that was a big show. Oh,
it was huge. Yeah.
Paul Lynde,
Marshall years.
Yeah, and Paul Lynde was the center square for decades. It felt like he was on that and was having a ball. Price was on that, and I think
I was actually watching something the other day. It was Bruce Vilanch being interviewed about the Paul Lynde Halloween special, and it was saying that Paul Lynde was this. Vilanch used a beautiful term to describe him, and I use that to describe somebody like Jack Black to this day, where you need a pinch of him, not a pound.
Yeah,
he was amazing in this little part, but if you put him on a sitcom by himself, it just drove people right away, and I love that. I loved that. I'm not the world's biggest Bruce Vilanch fan, but he nailed that. He knew what he was talking about.
Well, he also it was that amazing time where the sexual, like someone's their leanings, whatever you want to call it, where they swing. I'm just saying that everybody kind of knew that Paul Lynde, didn't have a wife and kids at home or whatever. But he was happy. He was very happy.
He didn't find Miss Right, Jason.
He was happy. He was, he was like, he was like Liberace. He had more fun with his dog.
What are you trying to say?
He didn't really need to be tied down. It was more being tied down, I think, that was really the issue. But there was just this sort of, women were nuts for Paul Lynde. He got
buckets
of fan mail. they just adored him. And it was just that amazing time where it was like, it just was what it was, and nobody really thought about it.
I watched the Paul Lynde Halloween special with my wife, and she kept saying, like, all I see is Roger from Family Guy, or American Dad. And I said to my wife, yeah, but if you and Seth MacFarlane's like, you know, if Paul Lynde was still alive, he would have voiced Roger from American Dad, like that.
Right.
There's no getting around that. There's no. That is what he is supposed to be.
You know, that makes me think. Now we're talking about Paul Lynde. That makes me think of things like the Donnie and Marie show, which Paul Lynde was basically on every single week. He was sort of like their uncle.
Yeah.
Because I thought, well, I bet Vincent Price showed up on Donnie and Marie at some point. He must have. Like, that must have just been...
I know Paul Williams did, because he sung the hell of it from Phantom of Paradise, which is one of my favorite movies. But
on Donnie and Marie he did?
Yep. Oh, he sung it on several specials.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's always just, you know,
they took the
Phantom of
they were just
Paradise
perennial
soundtrack and then just put it like the record on, and he lip synced to it. But
Vincent Price, Paul Lynde, Paul Williams, Rich Little. There were these people that just in the 70s, they were on every show you can think of at some point. And that, I mean, no wonder he was like we said, a lot of this stuff wasn't airing, every week. There wasn't a Vincent Price movie that, even if it was on, you didn't really know. Sometimes the TV listings would be wrong or whatever. So I probably saw more of him as a kid, well into the early 80s, more of Vincent Price on TV stuff than I had of his movies at that point.
Well, he was on the Brady Bunch Variety Hour. He was on a Donnie Marie episode. He played Dr. Frankenstein. Oh, God.
He also, I want to say, has the most amazing hair. It was amazing when he was young. It got better, in the mid 60s and then it just became this incredible force of nature, this hair, the way it would sort of,
what I want to
nobody looks too, like that. Nobody has hair like that.
He played I watched a few years ago, now he's on Columbo, but a friend of mine pointed out that he was on a Snoop Sisters. And I watched
I gotta stop you there. You stumped me. I don't know what Snoop Sisters is.
The only reason I know what Snoop Sisters is I think Alice Cooper plays a witch on an episode. And
what? What? Who are they? Who are the Snoop Sisters? What is this show?
The Snoop Sisters are Helen Hayes and Mildred Natwick, and they're like, I think it was one of those, like, Banachek and Columbo and Macmillan and Wife things, like the NBC Friday night movie.
Oh, the mystery movie. I actually did Rockford Files. That was the very first Rockford Files too. I think.
Yeah.
Was one of those specials one night. The 2 hour pilot.
And the Snoop Sisters only lasted like 5 episodes of this. Like, it did not make the cut. It is a time express of this series, and it's just 2 old ladies who were mystery writers, and shit happened. I've only watched 1 or 2 episodes because they're on YouTube.
Clearly, the influence for Murder, She Wrote.
I think the only reason I watched one of them was because Alice Cooper was on it, and I'm an Alice Cooper fan. And then the second one had Vincent Price playing basically Vincent Price, like a washed-up horror actor. So I watched that one too. And
Snoop Sisters.
I have nothing to report other than that.
Can I just say how much I love the fact that people like Paul Lynde and Alice Cooper would show up on things like the Muppets and Brady specials at a time
where they were, bless them,
where they were gacked out of their skulls on whatever they were.
Oh, sure.
There's something so. I've told you stories about the recording studio I go to and the couple guys that have been there for a long, long time, and just how Wild West. One guy told me that Robert Goulet and his wife hit on him. This is like mid 70s, and wanted to take them back to their house. They basically were very clear about what kind of time they wanted to spend with him back at their house, and and some of the stuff that just went on in the studio.
And he said no.
Yeah, he passed it up. I said, man, you know what? If I had been there, I would have gone with you, just to go to the house and have the weird experience.
In your life.
But he does, and it's just this weird time of, debauchery and drugs and everything, where it was like the Wild West. And so it's hilarious to me that they've talked about these things. It's not a secret. Alice Cooper and Paul Williams, they were just, you've seen the Paul Williams documentary where they show clips of him being on certain shows, and he doesn't want to watch it. He can't watch it. Where it's like, I can tell how messed up I am right there. He hosted the Mike Douglas show for a week or something, and he was drunk, for the entire week or something. There's something just kind of fantastic. I'm not saying to do drugs. I'm not saying to get drunk or anything. I'm just saying there's kind of something lovely about the fact that they'd be on these kid shows, and God knows what they were doing in the green room. That's all. I'm not endorsing anything. Say no to drugs, okay?
We know what they were doing in the green room.
Just say no to drugs, everybody, okay? That's all I'm going to say, all right? This is your brain on drugs. This is your brain on pod stallions. Right now.
One of the things I want to just say is I had no idea that I'd forgotten about this. Do you remember the terrible... I shouldn't say terrible, because there's that fan who will find me. The 80s film Dead Heat with
Joe Piscopo and
Treat Williams.
Treat Williams, and one of them's dead. Doesn't one of them get killed? And then they're partners.
They both get killed.
They both get killed. Oh, I guess I don't need to see that now.
I'm sorry.
Was Vincent Price in that?
He is. He's
in that movie?
Yeah.
Wow. He's in a movie... Oh, now that I'm thinking of it, he's in a movie directed by Dennis Hopper. Jodie Foster is in it.
Oh my God, I've seen that one.
It's Tracks? Like an early '90s. Tracks. I think was a different Dennis Hopper movie. This one was, I want to say 90 or so. It was one of the last things Vincent Price did. He's in one scene as like a mob boss in the back of a limo.
Catch Fire. This is the movie I'm thinking of. I remember this.
Remember this?
And she's an artist or something, and
somebody gets killed, and she's a witness, or he's a hitman. He's trying to protect her or something. But loads of people are in it too. So it's Hopper, Jodie Foster, Vincent Price. Who else is in that?
John Turturro, Fred Ward, who I'm a huge fan of.
Fred Ward.
I watched that at Schiller Theater one year.
Is Pesci in it? I just remember it being a great cast.
Dean Stockwell's in it.
Dean Stockwell. Okay. Yeah, of course, because he and Hopper were like best friends. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
That's not a bad movie. I remember renting it once, and it's not bad. But it's right in that thing where like she had just. She'd always been a presence, but then she exploded with Silence of the Lambs. Right to the. The accused was prominent as well, but Silence of the Lambs was just like global. So it was one of these things that she did, I think, that was probably on the shelf, and then Silence of the Lambs happened, and it was like, well, let's get this thing out, because, and it's a strange movie, but I remember it not being terrible. And Vincent Price has like one scene in it, and he's in the back of a limo, if I recall.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then he did Edward Scissorhands in 90. That was 1990, and then he died in 93. So he probably did a few odds and ends in between there, and then that's a good life. It was a really amazing life. Everything he did, the cookbooks and the art, because he lectured as well. I think he went around the country and lectured about art and stuff. I think
sounds right. Yeah, he I think at one time, and I don't have any examples of this, but he sold art through Sears.
Yes, it was
like
when
the
you
Vincent
put it
Price
through
collection.
Sears Roebuck, and you used it. You paid for it with your card, your Sears Roebuck card. But I don't know if it was real art or was it like lithographs. But he did a whole presentation for it, and I think he did commercials or something. And
it most definitely wasn't real art. It was definitely like purchased lithographs.
Yeah, lithographs. But yes, he did. I remember that from some special a million years ago about Vincent Price. I remember that. And
me too.
He made a video, or they made a film of him explaining what this thing is, this art thing that he's doing. So he was something. He was big in music, obviously. I don't know what he got for Thriller. It was just a session fee, but I hope he got peace. It's a big record.
He got paid well.
It's a big record.
I can only imagine that he was compensated.
He was big in TV. Didn't he do with Dracula? Am I crazy, or did he do like a TV special about Dracula or something in the 80s?
I don't remember that, but I do remember that like he narrated a French-Canadian TV show about the devil that I was a kid. I actually tracked this down. It took me forever to track it down, but I've only been able to find the French version of it on YouTube. But it was like Tales of the Devil, like the whole fiddle story and that sort of thing. And these were French-Canadian legends about the devil that they had animated, and Vincent Price did the narration for that. I mean, he really wasn't a unapproachable sort.
Right. He didn't. It seemed like he didn't turn anything down, but he kind of didn't. He kind of, it just was. I mean, like I say, that.
I'm sure. I can only imagine he did turn some stuff down, and that stuff was horrible.
Probably because he was double booked. No, but the one.
Well, no, I would love to see what he said no to.
Yeah,
I would love to see.
Yeah,
No,
he just was. Was he ever on that show that you like so much, called Fantastic
Hilarious House of Frightenstein?
Journey? Fantastic Boy.
He was not on Fantastic
Journey. I told you this before, that I remember that show. I remember it being on. I didn't, I have vague memories of it, but I remember watching it because it's something I would have, I would have been turned on by. I would have watched. He did it all. He was big in TV. He was big in movies. He could do drama. I mean, I think he kind of stopped with the drama for the most part at a certain point when he got so big in horror.
Yes, absolutely. Although I don't think he would have turned anything down.
What kind of VO work besides the cartoon? What else did he do in cartoons?
Oh boy!
Anything else?
One of his last credits was Tiny Toon Adventures, and that's about it.
They gave a TV show to Tiny Tim, Tiptoe Through the Tulips guy. He got his own cartoon.
No, Tiny Toon Adventures.
Oh, Tiny Toon. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
Although I would have watched that. I would have watched the Tiny Tim cartoon.
I'm sure he would. He did a Trapper John M.D. He, of course, narrated the Tim Burton short Vincent, which was about him.
Which I saw at my very first Spike and Mike's animation festival. I think it was 88 or 89.
I remember those.
And they brought it as like
he was in Bust.
As a surprise. They showed the Vincent short at the festival. What was the one you said?
Bustin' Loose, but his scenes were deleted.
I was just going to say, I know Bustin' Loose, and he wasn't in that.
Yeah,
his scenes were deleted.
He's in The Bionic Woman. He was, my goodness, he got around.
These are big shows, too. Like Bionic Woman, Carol Burnett and Bionic Woman were huge shows. So getting him is like, you'd instantly be home for that. Cancel all your plans, basically.
Night Gallery, of course.
Night Gallery, that's right. I forgot about the Night Gallery one.
Mod Squad. He was in a Mod Squad, for crap's sake.
He probably played a dealer.
And he was on the Red Skelton Hour. Oh my God. A whole bunch of times. Wow, he really got around.
He must have done just fine. Let's put it that way. He did just fine. I got to get one of these distinctive dummies. I got to track down that Theater of Blood Butch doll. I gotta have that before I die.
See that you do.
So there you go. That's Vincent Price. That's,
I think that's Vincent Price in a nutshell. Yeah, absolutely.
I hope you've all learned something, and do yourself a favor this Halloween season. Get yourself some Vincent Price movies for one of your horror festivals.
I think you'll be able to find all of them on AMC, or some good ones on AMC or TCM this season, and I think they're definitely worth it.
Yeah. House of Wax. I'd kick it off with House of Wax, because that would remind me of that experience. And it's disturbing. And you know who else is in House of Wax? Who's his little Charles Bronson.
Yeah.
Now that's a guy
Mr.
that
Majestic.
he could take anybody in a fight. Charles Bronson.
Yeah, I think he never let go of that. Although, as he got older, it didn't really work. But yeah,
he was still pretty badass. I mean, I wouldn't, I wouldn't take a swing at him, but
I don't know. They were filming the last of those movies.
The Death Wish one. The Death Wish one. Yeah, like
they were starting to get a little okay,
But I think it's the third or the fourth one is just incredible. It's just so insane. Like these, punk rock type dudes in the neighborhood.
Oh, the third one. Death Wish 3. The first time I ever watched Death Wish 3, my wife was going to bed, and I said, yeah, I'm not joining you. This is going to be horrible. And it really is, not to get off on a tangent, but it is, written by your racist grandpa.
It is.
This is how he thinks the world is.
Exactly. That's exactly.
And it is beautiful.
The way the gang are dressed and kind of how they act is like whoever wrote this, had seen The Road Warrior and had just discovered who, Sid Vicious was the week before.
And by the way, that is Chuck from Happy Days, the leader of the villain.
That's right. He was
there's just a part where there's a guy called the Giggler or something like that. And
what does he do? What's his thing?
He giggles and he steals this woman's purse. He runs up, ha 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 ha, steals this woman's purse. Bronson just murders him in the street, and everyone applauds.
It's amazing. By the way, that's a classic Giggler move. Stealing a purse, giggling about it.
Giggler, man. Just
who's gonna make us laugh, man? That's the Giggler.
Please, if you're at the grocery store and you see that in the bin by the checkouts, own that movie.
You will not be disappointed. I mean, you will be disappointed, but you won't be disappointed because it's so atrocious. It is so bad.
God,
but again, it's
so
one of those things that's from the moment it was dated before the pen hit the paper to write the thing. It was dated. It was already well past its sell-by date. Everything in it, and I think it was 85, 84, 85 or something. When you certainly should have known better. At that point to make.
Well,
such a thing.
I remember that. I opened the film, and Ed Lauder, who was a great character actor. It was 85. Yeah, good God, it was 85.
85. Oh my God, why do I know that? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, Michael Wisher directed. But
Michael Wisher,
where Ed Lauder's throwing, Charles Bronson's character in jail for nothing. By the way, he didn't do anything. And I said to my wife, I have to stay up until they're back to back on the street just murdering people, because I know that's what's going to happen.
You were right. You were right.
Oh my God, I was right.
Can I tell you how much I love Ed Lauder, by the way, and also that this is a true story. I came to a stoplight once. This is about 4 or 5 years ago, and I turned to my right, and Ed Lauder was driving the car next to me. And I looked, and he just kind of turned. I swear this is true. He just kind of turned to see me, and I kind of went, "Oh my God!" And then I put the passenger window, and I kind of went, "Oh man, you're fantastic! I love your stuff!" And he kind of did this sort of, not quite the gun with the thumb and the finger kind of thing, but he just kind of, did that past his chin at me, "You got it, buddy!" Yeah, you're, yeah. He kind of did the gun thing, yeah, and he winked at me, and then drove off, and it just made my day that I just got to say hi to Ed Lauder. His windows up, and I put my... Did he die?
He died 5 years ago, yeah.
Well, there you go. He probably thought, it's not going to get any better after I met that guy at stoplight.
He died happy.
He died happy.
That you
know what?
Knew who he was.
You know what? You laugh, but I bet it happens more than you think. That I meet people, and they die not long after, because life just starts to go downhill after that, pretty much.
Happened to me and Jim Kelly.
See?
Yeah.
We've had it. We just got that thing, man. I don't know what it is, but
the kiss of death.
Kiss of death. Well, speaking of, that's the end of the show. I hope you enjoyed it.
That's it for us, guys.
I think we talked about Vincent Price at some point in the show. I don't remember how
got a little bit in.
Got.
It's a 2-hour episode. You'll find him.
I'm sure you learned some stuff. And thank you, Brian. And we are going to do another one For October, we always do 2. Yep. So, as always, we're happy to
get the month with 1, and we'll end the month with 1. So
happy to get suggestions. If there's anything you'd like to hear us talk about or cover, please let us know.
Even if you want us to do Vincent Price again, we're good.
We'll do it. And then all we ask is to send us some candy. That's all.
Yeah.
Just a bag that we can split, and cash. Preferably cash. But some candy.
Mostly cash.
Mostly cash, though. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Spooky times, folks.
Woo.